Millionaire's daughter silent since birth, until a single dad garbageman did the unbelievable. Everyone in Oak Ridge believed little Chloe Vale would never speak a single word, not after 8 years of silence, not after every specialist gave up, but on a rainy Tuesday morning, in front of the entire town, her very first word shattered every prediction, and she said it to the last person anyone expected. A garbageman. A single dad. A man the world had given up on, too. Was the kind of town where people whispered more than they waved, especially when it came to the Vale mansion on the hill. That's where Chloe Vale, the silent 8-year-old heiress, lived with her widowed father, Jonathan Vale, the graying billionaire who could build empires but couldn't reach his daughter's voice. Doctors said she could speak physically. There was nothing wrong with her vocal cords, but emotionally, every test ended the same. Selective mutism, caused by trauma from witnessing her mother's fatal car accident at age 2. Jonathan spent millions on therapies. Still, Chloe hid behind walls thicker than the ones in their mansion. Her only comfort was her sketchbook, endless pages of lonely houses, quiet forests, and a stick figure standing beside a trash can. Jonathan never realized who that figure was. Across town lived Evan Brooks, a 32-year-old single father raising his 7-year-old son, Noah. Evan worked the early shift as a garbage collector, 3 a.m. to 11 a.m., and took every overtime hour he could get. His wife had left years earlier, leaving Evan to figure out fatherhood one improv bedtime story at a time. He wasn't rich. He wasn't important, but he loved fiercely, and Noah grew up knowing that was worth more than money ever could be. Every Tuesday, Evan's route included the Vale mansion. Most people pretended garbage men were invisible, but not Chloe. She always stood by the gate, her sketchbook tucked to her chest. She never waved, but she watched, and Evan, he smiled every time, because she reminded him of Noah, quiet, observant, carrying worlds inside. Morning, princess, he'd say gently. No answer, not even a nod, but her eyes would soften, just for a second. One afternoon, Jonathan Vale rushed outside as Evan loaded the bins. Brooks, a moment. His tone was clipped, used to command, not request. Yes, sir. Jonathan sighed heavily. My daughter, she seems to like watching you. I don't know why, but, he hesitated, the vulnerability shocking even himself. Does she ever say anything? Anything at all? Evan shook his head softly. No, sir. But she listens. Kids like her, they pay attention to the quiet things. Jonathan stared at him, the weight of 8 silent years heavy on his shoulders. Do you think she could ever speak? Evan swallowed. He'd seen something in Chloe's eyes, fear, loneliness, hope. I think, he said carefully, she's waiting for someone she trusts. That night, Jonathan sat beside Chloe during dinner. She didn't speak, of course, but she opened her sketchbook and showed him a drawing, a man in an orange reflective vest, smiling, waving, beside a little girl who looked like her. Jonathan froze. She had never drawn herself with anyone before, except her mother. He blinked away tears. Maybe Evan was right. One stormy morning, everything changed. The rain slammed against the mansion gates as Evan carefully lifted the trash bin. Suddenly, a scream tore through the air. Not Chloe, Jonathan, Chloe. Chloe. His voice cracked with panic. Evan dropped everything and sprinted inside. He found Chloe standing inches from a collapsed garden wall, bricks scattered, rain pouring down. One wrong step and she would have been crushed. Evan reached her first, pulling her tightly into his arms. You're safe. I got you, he whispered. Her tiny fingers clutched his vest. Desperate, frightened, Jonathan arrived a second later, trembling. Chloe, sweetheart, are you hurt? She shook her head, still gripping Evan. Jonathan stared, stunned, as Evan knelt and wiped rain from her cheeks. Hey, princess, you scared us. But you're okay now. For the first time in her life, Chloe leaned her head against someone's shoulder, and it wasn't her father's. After that day, something changed. Chloe waited by the gate every morning, no matter the weather. But now, when Evan arrived, she didn't just watch, she followed him, step by quiet step. Jonathan didn't understand it, why a billionaire's daughter clung to a man who hauled trash for a living. But he didn't stop it, because she'd begun smiling, laughing silently, drawing new pictures. Her, Noah, and Evan sitting under a tree. By week 3, Evan and Noah were visiting the mansion after work. Noah showed Chloe magic tricks. Evan taught her how to throw pebbles to make ripples in the pond. Jonathan watched from the balcony, and for the first time in years, he believed healing was possible. One evening, tragedy struck again. Noah slipped on the wet driveway, hitting his head on the stone edge. Blood, panicked. Evan's voice rising in terror. Stay with me, buddy. Please. Jonathan rushed them into his car, faster than any ambulance, and sped to the hospital. Chloe sat frozen in the back seat beside Noah's hand. They waited hours, breath tight, hearts shaking. Finally, the doctor came out. Minor concussion. He'll be okay. Evan burst into tears of relief. Chloe stood up, and walked toward him. Jonathan watched, confused. Evan sank to his knees in exhaustion, and then it happened. Chloe cupped his face with both hands. Her voice broke through her 8-year-long silence, trembling but clear. "Daddy." The entire room froze. Evan's eyes widened. Jonathan's breath left his chest. Nurses stopped walking. Evan choked. I'm not, sweetheart, I'm not your dad." But Chloe shook her head gently, then she pointed at her own heart and whispered, "Daddy means safe." Jonathan covered his mouth, tears spilling. His daughter wasn't choosing between fathers, she was choosing the first person who made her feel protected since her mother died. Evan pulled her into the tightest hug he'd ever given anyone. "I'll always keep you safe, princess," he whispered, voice breaking. "I promise."